What's up, CHFFL, and welcome to your 2020 Outlook videos. The first one I'm calling the Outlook Primer. We're not going to do any grades of teams today. We're going to grade my picks from last year, and we're going to look at some stuff that we could learn from the previous year. Thank you to everybody who's already moved over to Discord. Hopefully you've gotten here through the link on Discord, because I'm going to leave it unlisted for a few days, and hopefully everybody is over, because it's going to just be so much better having I can control the links and the discussion a little more. We can organize things. I can put important information, so if you don't feel like chit-chatting, you can just check the important stuff. It'll be good. But let's get on to this 2020 Outlook Primer. I'm ready for the 2020 season. I know it's late May, but we got to get into this. I'm just too hyped. Okay, so last year, too long didn't read. If you're not watching the whole video, my predictions were less accurate than they were the year before, and some choices that made a ton of sense just were wrong. Obviously, I base my predictions just on a set of logical factors: what draft picks you have that are higher, and what keepers you have that you can keep above where the experts are ranking them, or I guess below, for a cheaper price you can get more value. So I don't put into it like how good I think the person's going to be at fantasy football. But let's look here. Here's a chart that shows my grades of teams, their season points, their final rank at the end of the playoff bracket. And then I have on the right whether it was a miss in terms of the season points and in terms of the final rank. So I only give the one prediction. My prediction, one thing you're going to take from this video is that my predictions are more about your regular season point performance, which makes sense because I can't predict what kind of trades you're going to make throughout the year. So I have in green kind of my biggest misses. We have Wes, who seemed like by far the best team going into the year, and then was just kind of middle of the road in terms of points. And ended up winning the losers bracket, so he finished 5th in the league, but that's still, when I have him picked first, is a big miss. My biggest miss overall was Roy, who I had being 3rd and finished dead last in terms of points and ranking. I missed on myself. That's 2 years in a row I've missed on me, where I've given myself a bad grade going in because I really didn't have good keepers or any extra picks. But I turned it around in the season. I missed on Parker pretty badly, who had a good year in terms of points, scored even more than me, even though I had him below me. Although he missed the playoffs, that was just because everything was so competitive down to the wire there. And then Marty I missed on. There was no reason to rank Marty anything other than last, but kudos to him for still finishing 6th overall and beating out 3 or 4 teams in terms of points. And Marty's looking a lot better going into this year, which we'll see when we get to the regular team previews. Now, what I have in blue here are ones that I just couldn't have gotten right in terms of both points and rank. You look at Grant, at 1620 points, he was middle of the road in points. I called it a hit. He must have been 5th or 6th. I mean, he was above Wes. So I was right on that, but in terms of rank, he finished 11th because he wasn't going to make the playoffs, so he traded off the last week and did badly in the tournament. And then if we go down to like Max, I missed on points. He was 2nd to last in points, but I had him about right in terms of rank. I had him 6th, and he finished 8th. That's pretty close. And then finally Brad, who I had, where's that? 8th, and in terms of points he was right there around 8, but in terms of rank he finished 2nd in the league because he made the playoffs and had a few good weeks, which has always been my philosophy in fantasy, is that you have 2 steps to a season: make the playoffs, get lucky. So those were ones that nobody could have predicted right for both categories. So let's start looking at some charts. First we have the regular season points scored versus my preseason rank. You see the R-squared correlation value here, 0.066, is pretty loose. Last year I was able to have 2.28 or something, and then if I took out a couple outliers, it went up really high. My predictions were really good. This year, taking out the outliers wouldn't even be worth it because it wouldn't make it that much better. Basically, it was generally predictive of your regular season success, but not good. You have a lot of agency to make your team better even if your draft stock is not good. And then looking at my ranking versus where you finished, your final ranking, there's no correlation. R squared is essentially 0, which means I could have picked random numbers for everybody and it would have been about as good most of the time. To kind of show how my predictions are not a prediction of final rank at all, because we're going to show that regular season points were not a prediction of final rank last year, which we kind of saw when I was looking at the weird people like Grant who scored really well but finished badly. If you put final ranking versus how you did in the regular season in terms of points, the correlation is even less than my predictions at 0.028, which is really weak. So you have a ton of ability to affect your season by your choices, your managerial picks. It's not just defined by keepers. So looking back at this chart again, instead of having whether it was a miss or a hit, I have my notes. These are actually what my notes were when I made my picks. Now Wes, having him at the top, I don't have any notes there, but he was missing, I think, a 3rd and a 5th round pick, but he had 4 keepers he could have that were potential 1st or 2nd round picks. So I said he's going to take 3 of them. So he's going to have, including his 1st and 2nd round pick, 5 guys who should be first 2 rounds. That's why I put him so high, and he still finished in the middle. Roy, a big miss. He had Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, Juju was a bust last year because of the quarterback situation, but Chris Godwin did really well, and he had an extra 7th rounder, and Roy still managed to finish last. I don't really have a great explanation for that. Grant had that extra 2nd round pick and the 6th, and that overcame his only okay keepers in terms of points. I'm focusing on points, not on final rank. Swan, dominating the league and winning every major award, had Edelman as a late keeper, who was really solid last year, and then an extra 4th and a 5th. So what I'm kind of seeing with these, because I do have a point to making you look at this, is that last year at least, it seemed that having the extra mid-round picks and depth was more important than having a few high-end guys and then a big gap. I don't know if it's because 1st and 2nd round picks were busts more than they were in a normal year or not, but that's what it was. Having depth was more important than having a few top choices, which is kind of interesting because that seems like the opposite of what I would think. I would think that having a few 1st round picks and then patching holes with free agency would work better. Now this is data, this is points scored in the 3 years that we've been a keeper league. First thing to take away is that last year was the lowest total that we've put up in any one year. And another thing, if you look right up at who finished in last in terms of points, was the highest that it's been. And then up at the top, our top score was about the same as the first year we were a keeper league, and last year, 2 years ago, we had 2 teams that scored well over 1,900 points. So the spread of points was much denser than it was the year before, which makes my predictions obviously a lot harder. If everything is spread out, if the bad teams do really bad and the good teams do really good, it'll make predictions more accurate. So last year was kind of weird because you'll remember going into the playoffs how close everybody was. It was just a very competitive season. So this one's gone a little long. We're at 8, almost 9 minutes. Sorry about that. It's just I had a lot to talk about. Takeaways: outlooks are still valid predictor of potential, so I want to get them out this year early so that our teams, Swan and Banis can have them as information when they pick the conferences. It's only for your regular season points, and the predictions become less important as the year goes and you make trades and free agent pickups. Last year, having extra depth in the middle round was more valuable than having high-end keepers, and last year being so competitive made everything a little weird. So I'm not going to waste any more time. Hope you enjoyed this. Look forward to my team previews or outlooks starting to come very quickly, and I'll see you in the Discord. Bye-bye for now.